In Arkham Horror, the card game, player cards that are released with no apparent deck in mind are considered especially hard to use. In Arkham, Massachusetts, the dedicated detectives who investigate these unusual cards are members of a podcast known as Miskatonic University Radio. These are the Binder Trials.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Miskatonic University Radio, the podcast exploring Fantasy Flight Games' Arkham Horror, the card game. I'm Dane.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Ben.
And today, court is in session. This episode, we're going to be analyzing some celebrated community favorites, and by favorites, I mean cards, and some lesser-known gems, and ask, does this card belong behind bars? And what I mean by behind bars, I mean in your binder and never to be seen by the light of day.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea is that, you know, the Arkham Horror discourse sphere, just like any discourse sphere, really revolves around kind of a take economy, right? Where people have opinions about things, and when these opinions come into contact, there's friction. It produces heat and light. That produces content that people like. So our idea was, let's look at some cards where you know, either we sort of disagree with what our sense of the kind of you know, general conventional wisdom is on how good or bad these cards are, or where we kind of disagree internally between the three of us. And let's just try to settle these questions, right? Let's try to decide once or for all for each of these cards, like, should it be banished to the binder jail forever? Or is it possibly the best card in the game? Is it a perfect card that we love? So that's kind of what we're trying to do.
And obviously,
There's no in between.
Indisputable decision here. This is the final call on these cards.
Right? Yeah, none of this kind of you know, hand wavy, indecisive, like, well, it's kind of good sometimes. Like, none of that. It's either belongs in the binder forever, or it's if you don't play this card, you're crazy. So that's kind of what we're going for.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned binder jail, Dan, because I have, in fact,
oh wow,
binder jail right here underneath this very, very discerning magnifying glass.
People listening to the audio podcast can't see this, but Dane has an actual box that is binder jail, and I guess he's gonna put some cards in there.
Is that a cardboard box that is decorated to look like a filing cabinet? Is that what?
Yes. This may or may not have accidentally been taken from an Airbnb I once stayed at.
I feel like we could have. Wow, that's oof, don't confess to that, Dane.
Wow.
I feel, or else you'll be in binder.
I didn't say.
I mean, I feel like
the actions of individual members of this Talking Urso do not represent the whole.
Yeah, exactly. We are not accomplices in this.
Hey,
I want to make that very clear. If any crimes were committed by anyone in the course of preparing this prop thing, certainly only the people directly responsible can be legally prosecuted for it. You know, if we'd had even more time to put together this whole prop thing, we could have gone full on prop comedy. We could have, like, gotten a bunch of watermelons and, like, if we didn't like a card, stuck the card into the watermelon and then hit it with a hammer. Like, you know, that I'm just saying, like, that we could have. There's a lot of different directions we could have gone in with this.
It's not bad. And this is the small dossier that I have of actual cards that we're going to be looking at today. Ben. Right. Yeah. So you know, these are the cards that we're going to be looking at. If they do pass, for listeners out there, the cards will be going into the nice, comfy, revised core set box alongside the pre-made decks that were there, and as well as some of the nice new art for the counter cards. And if they are they're not going to be passing and they're complete trash, they're going to be going directly into a card jail.
Binder jail forever.
Binder jail. There we go.
Ben, as the only one of the three of us who's currently kind of floating above the goof zone instead of wallowing in it, can you do you want to lead us directly into the first of the cards we're gonna pass judgment on?
Yeah, last thing I was going to note is we're going to give ourselves about 6 minutes for each one of these cards, which is enough time to make a final call on anything in life, really. So
yeah, that's all we need.
So I will, and of course, me reading the card is going to count against that time. So,
better read fast.
Yeah. So first up, we have a classic card from Dunwich, Lightning Gun. This is a 6-cost, level 5 Guardian asset with an intellect and combat icon on it. It's an item, weapon, firearm. It has uses 3 ammo. And action, spend 1 ammo, fight. You get +5 combat for this attack. This attack deals +2 damage, and it takes up 2 hand slots.
I feel like this is the original card that people got mad at us. I don't even remember when we talked about it or what we said about it, but for some reason, like a lot of the comments that we got on Reddit and other things were all people being like, "Oh yeah, I tried listening to their podcast once, and they said Lightning Gun sucked," and that was when I knew that they were bad and I shouldn't listen to them anymore.
Subscribed.
Yeah.
I mean, this was during when we were like kind of reviewing cards in the Forgotten Age, right? That should to kind of give a idea of when we were doing this.
I mean, there's never been an official review by MER of this card because you guys didn't start until the Forgotten Age, right? So I assume you brought it up, maybe comparing it to other guns from Forgotten Age or something. I don't remember. This was like 2 or 3 years ago, before before the pandemic. So
I think it might also be that more recently I don't see people talking about this card as much. I feel like when Flamethrower came out, anyone who was playing Lightning Gun kind of switched over to Flamethrower, which is also overrated. And so I don't see people talking about Lightning Gun that much these days. But I mean, I think people maybe still think it's better than we think it is. Do we think?
Yeah. One thing to mention is that didn't it get tabooed, or did it not? I thought it was tabooed up to 6, or maybe no. I'm thinking of Lightning. I'm thinking of Flamethrower.
Yeah.
No.
Well, so because we only have a limited amount of time, I mean, I think the case against Lightning Gun is it's very expensive. It takes up both your hand slots. You only get 3 shots, and doing a lot of damage is great. But I mean, first off, 3 damage is a lot. But like these days, there's a lot of weapons you can do that much with. Like for example, the hammer. And it like a lot of times you don't need to do 3 damage. You need to kind of just like do 2 damage to kill a little guy or something. Like it's just all of your eggs are in this one basket, and the basket is very expensive, and you have to hold it with both hands, right?
Right, exactly. The thing about this is that too is that like kind of enemies they can come in 3 health, and they are very annoying once you get to them. But usually you're dealing with like those smaller enemies, like Dan was saying, like, and you don't want to use this on rats. Right. Or you're dealing with like a 5 or 6 health enemy, and sure, like this plus vicious blow could do that, but also like you just hammer.
Now, if you really need that +5 combat because you're playing like expert or something, then I mean sure, but like there's other weapons that give you fairly big bonuses. You can always put things like you can play things that statically boost your combat. You can just commit a lot of cards. Like there's a lot of other ways to get your combat up that are give you more options and more flexibility than this card.
Yeah, 3 ammo is a little rough. When it came out, I think the argument was that it was like this versus shotgun, right? And shotgun had less ammo than this,
which is also overrated. And I think part of what's cool about it is like just the name Lightning Gun. Like immediately it sounds cool. Like I agree that is just a cool sounding thing. The art of it is pretty cool. And it just looks neat. I definitely agree with all that. I think people also used to do like sleight of hand combo with it in like Larry Anderson or something, which is that's like a fun interaction. I wouldn't say it's like great, but it's definitely kind of fun.
Yeah, it's obviously been tabooed. I mean, there were ways to support Lightning Gun, like when Dunwich came out. Like, you could run extra ammunition. Zoe could potentially have enough money to actually play it. So, like, there were ways to refill it, but you did want to protect it from, getting crypt chilled or whatever too, because that would be a bad time. Or straight jacketed.
Yeah.
So those are early cards.
Dendromorphicist.
Yeah, I guess the question is there's so many 2-handed weapons now that could do 3 or more damage in one attack that need less support than this. Is there a niche for this still?
I really don't think there is. I think maybe like up until a couple like last year when the super good hammer came out, like you could try to make a case for it, and I think it would still be pretty challenging. Today with the hammer, like the hammer's just way better, right?
I mean, I feel like maybe putting the completely broken, what is it,
hammer.
Cyclopean hammer? Yeah, Cyclopean hammer.
That's the wrong hammer.
On the on the mention is a little bit like unfair because that card is very clearly broken. Everybody's expecting for it to get nerfed and like tabooed. It'll be sad when it happens, but as far as like Lightning Gun goes, the 3 ammo is a huge structure. Like Flamethrower can do a lot more damage in one action than this can. It's like 4, right, or 5 or something like that. And you can spread it amongst things. It's like You've also got the Holy Spear if you're doing bless kind of stuff.
Right.
You've got the butterfly blades or whatever they're called now. So there's a lot of other options out there, and this doesn't really shine past any of those.
I mean, we're kind of like kicking it when it's already down, just because, like I said, people don't talk about it that much anymore, and like the Cyclopean Hammer is just like clearly better than it. But I think we had to bring it up just because, like, I think that, like I said, this was kind of like the original card that people got mad at us for talking about it.
Yeah.
15
So
seconds left.
we're almost out of time. I think this is definitely Binder Zone, right? Does everyone agreed?
Yeah, I think we're
Prepare
judging
for Binder Jail.
it
Straight
for
for
Binder
Binder.
Jail.
Yep.
Stand by our opinion on it.
Oh, man.
From
I have a
3 years
gavel.
ago, probably.
In the other room.
We should have had like a
didn't-
police siren sound effect for this.
I ran out of time. Giving myself time, I would have made a gavel sound effect. But
I have a gavel in the other room.
oh well.
I just didn't think about it. All right, off to the binder with you, Lightning Gun.
Yeah.
Forever.
Forever.
All right.
Asterisk.
Next card for Judgment is Shortcut. This is the level 2 version of Shortcut. It costs 1. It is still a Seeker event with a willpower, intellect, and agility icon. It's an insight and a tactic. It's fast. Play only during your turn. Attached to your location. Attached location gains. Free trigger. Exhaust shortcut. Move to a connecting location.
Yeah, so I didn't realize this one was a particularly like contentious card. I kind of figured that everybody kind of was on the same wavelength and that everybody just thought this was good. But apparently that's not the case. Apparently some people are much lower on it than I am. And I think that's more coming from the perspective of comparing it with its level 0 counterpart, right?
Oh, you mean the good shortcut? Is that what we're comparing it to?
Yeah, we're comparing it to the baby shortcut.
Okay. I get it. Yeah, I mean, Dane, you like this card a lot, and you've definitely I've seen you play it a lot. What's the case for it? Like when you upgrade from level 0 shortcut to level 2 shortcut, what's going through your mind? Like, oh, this is great because blank, right?
Yeah, so level 2 shortcut does have a couple things that we definitely are going to be mentioning that aren't not in its case. But as far as things that are in its case, it is very, very good in the specific scenarios that it does really well in. And among those scenarios, or among the campaigns that we've had, there are a lot of those scenarios that can pop up. Places where you have to like move back and forth between locations, right? Like thinking of like in the Clutches of Chaos, for the greater good. Places where you kind of have one choke point that you kind of need to move back and forth between, or it's much more of like a team-oriented card in that you're getting your whole team. Like if you just drop it turn 1 or something like that on a really key place, then you're getting your whole team a ton of free movement. And that's like similar compared to other things like Pathfinder, comparing to other things like the Guardian one that I keep not remembering the name of right now. But it just saves a lot of actions, and that's kind of why I like it a lot.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think like there's definitely particular scenarios where there is like one place you can put this on where it will be pretty good. But I guess my evaluation of it is like there aren't too many of those scenarios. Even in those scenarios, getting kind of full value out of it is still kind of a gamble. Like it still depends on a lot of stuff going right. The thing about the level 0 shortcut, well, first let me provide some very sophisticated math PhD analysis of the difference between these two cards. I would like to point out that shortcut level 2 costs infinity% more resources than shortcut level 0. Like cards that cost 0 in this game are so good. It's so great when you can just play something for free and it doesn't cost you anything. It bums me out that the upgraded shortcut actually costs you money. So that's kind of a bummer. It also costs 2 XP. There's a ton of other stuff in Seeker that you want to spend XP on. But lastly, like I just think level 0 shortcut is really great. You can already play it on other people. You can just hold it in hand and save it for when you really need it. You can even play like 2 of them in the same turn, which you can kind of do with this. But once you've played it once, you kind of like you can only activate it once per turn. So level 0 shortcut, I just really like. And with level 0 shortcut, if you're kind of like cycling through your deck really fast, you just end up getting to reuse it all the time anyway, right? Like, so it's not like, you know, I think the idea is like level 1 shortcut, you get to use it a million times, and level 0 shortcut, you only use it once. But in a Seeker deck, that's not really true. Level 0 shortcut, you also get to use it a million times.
think that's assuming that the secret decks are like super optimized to draw through their deck.
They
fast.
are.
But not everybody's going to have a secret deck that can do that.
Why
Some
not?
people are going to be playing that new permanent that increases your deck size by 15.
Why would
Some
they do
people are
that
going to
then?
be playing a 50 card Mandy deck.
Who are
You
these
know what I
people
mean?
then?
So like so these are kind of arguments in Shortcut 2's
Can I-
favor where
Can I talk
you
to these
play it
people? I have some
once
advice for them.
and you don't have to worry about like speeding through your deck. The other thing to note in kind of Shortcuts 2's favor is that once it's down, once you play it during your turn, anybody can activate it on anybody's turn, right? Whereas Shortcuts 0, and I think that's just kind of like a very vanilla, case for Shortcut 2 in that you can't play this on somebody else's turn if it's level 0 version. So like if there's something weird with enemies going on, they can just use it whenever they want.
Assuming it's already down. I want to hear what Ben has to say about this, but first I want to share one final argument that I believe is like a death blow against Shortcut 2. Shortcut level 0 has a full art promo card that we all have, which looks awesome because the art is very cool. There is no full art promo of Shortcut level 2. If you upgrade, you have to put that back in the binder and take out the uncool chump Shortcut version that does not have a promo of it. That never feels good. Ben, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Anyway, Ben.
I think Dan's made a pretty strong case. We did jump through a lot of hoops to get those shortcut promos.
You did.
Had to fly. So yeah, I lean more towards Dan on this. I think Shortcut 2 is like situational in that if you could pick a couple scenarios where it's like very good in, and it can be helpful. I also think it might maybe loses a little value in terms of how much it contributes to the team with higher player counts, because
True.
It's less net movement per player. I don't know. Maybe that's an insane math logic, but I don't know. I agree that there's other things to spend experience on. I think you can slot in maybe in a final scenario if you've already bought all your other key upgrades, but Shortcut 0 is going to get most of the work done most of the time anyway.
Sounds like we got a final vote. Is that right?
Final vote.
So the final verdict
is Binder Fodder forever.
Oh,
Binder
Dane,
jail.
I know that. Sorry, I know this is
Get
gonna
out
feel
of
good for
here.
you. Yeah.
in the binder jail, gone forever.
Yeah.
Never to be seen in a deck ever again.
Yeah, Dane doesn't know, but we've told Harrison to super glue that box closed after this podcast and then bury it in the backyard.
Yeah, we wanted to put like a little slot into it, like a mailbox, so you can put cards in, but you can never take them out. That was the original idea.
So, well, it's all right, Dane. I'm sure you'll find some other card to enjoy. Speaking of, let's move on to Drawing Thin. This is a Survivor asset, level 0, cost 0, with a willpower icon on it. And it's a talent reaction. When you initiate a skill test, exhaust Drawing Thin, increase the difficulty of this test by 2, gain 2 resources, or draw 1 card. And we're evaluating the tabooed version, which has been chained to cost 3 experience now.
It's been chained.
It has been chained. Remember this card? Do you remember this card? That is what I'm going to say about this card.
Dane,
do you remember it?
I still use this card in like every Survivor deck. I don't know what you're talking about.
I never play Survivors.
Memberberry.
Well, this is I feel like the kind of conventional wisdom on this card is that it's incredibly good, and even the tabooed version is still incredibly good. Sounds like Ben is still pro. Ben is still
pro
this card is amazing.
I've noticed that most people that I play with other than you guys are very anti me playing this card for some reason. I'm not sure why.
I've noticed that too. I've noticed that by being one of those people. Well, Ben, do you want to make a case for Drawing Thin? I mean, to some extent, maybe the case doesn't need to be made because everyone already likes it. But like, do you want to kind of outline the case for it?
I mean, the case is survivors don't have too much economy. They also do have cheap cards, so maybe they don't need as much economy as other classes.
Oh yeah, cheap cards like Cunning Distraction, Trial by Fire. Yeah. Oh, did we read the card?
I did read the card. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
So, this is a very good way to passively gain money or cards. It just requires you to do a test. You don't even need to succeed at the test. You actually get the cards of the money before you draw the Chaos token. And that's great. Survivors already kind of like bobble around either just failing the test they're doing anyway, or having some nonsense to make them auto succeed at the test. They don't really have I don't really find I willingly do any tests that I'm like at the middle ground where it's not going to be one of those two conditions, because I'm either trying to fail and do some fail by nonsense, or get take heart to somehow not draw the elder sign, or I have some blessed nonsense happening, or I'm using like key of ease or some other nonsense that makes my skill test so high, my skill value so high already that I'll pass even if I bump this up to get myself some money or cards. So I think it's very good.
So just kind of to pose a question here to you, Ben. What kind of tests do you just kind of can you randomly take at any given time to kind of ensure that this can happen, right? And why is this card so great for the Return to the Circle Undone?
Well, that I mean, just to build on that, like, are you kind of evaluating this card assuming that you always can just kind of activate it for free with a test that you would do anyway? Right, or are you kind of, is this more of a thing where like, yeah, you have to take an action to do some investigate that you're intending to fail, but you get this money or something, you know?
I mean, that's a good point. Often this gets to trigger for free because it's like something I do during the Mythos phase, which tests don't care about passing or failing. Or it might be like I trigger track shoes because I'm moving one location and I don't actually need to move a second location. I bump up the track shoes test or something. And sometimes it's like encounter cards that go in your threat zone that you have to test it at every turn and you maybe don't care about getting rid of. So there's a lot of scenarios where you can just trigger this and not care about it. I guess the downside is there are sometimes spooky tokens that are very, very bad if you fail a test when drawing them. And that's when you gotta kind of weigh, do I trigger drawing thin? And you do trigger drawing thin. So
the track shoes thing is especially funny because it is a really powerful interaction, but it's funny when you accidentally draw an elder sign and pass when you didn't want to and you have to keep moving. Yeah, I mean, I think the case against this is, so first off, I think there's characters who can put this card in their deck who, when I build those characters, I don't play it. Like Agnes and like Tommy, for instance, or even William Yorick, because this card on its own, I think is just not very good because I find that you don't consistently enough have ways to trigger it without just burning an action just to get money, which feels like not a great use of actions. Where it's really powerful is if you play a like Survivor full-on fail system deck where you're trying to fail a lot of tests, but those decks are just bad, at least in like 3 or 4 player. Like those are generally not, those don't have the juice for like, you know, hard mode or whatever usually, right?
They have some niches and there's Stella nonsense you can do.
I mean, like obviously I would play this card in Stella, but I also like wouldn't play Stella if we were going to do like hard mode Return to Circle Undone, you know?
I don't think you play this card or any Survivor during any kind of the Circle Undone ever. Yeah, that's just my opinion. But like
that's
for
the funny
any
part too, it came out in, didn't it come out in Circle Undone? And it was like immediately and it was like, this is not the campaign to play this card, you know?
Yes.
I mean, it can be powerful in situations, but it's not, I don't think it's like a general purpose amazing econ engine card. I think it's like a card that can be good in certain types of decks that kind of still have some limitations.
Yeah, I think there was a time where, like, before it was tabooed, you just took this card and it helped kickstart your economy. There was no reason not to play it because, like, look at all the other level 0 Survivor cards, right? Like, and then look back at this, and then look at the other level 0 Survivor cards again.
I like that it's free. That's good.
Exactly. Yeah. You can play it with Dark Horse, which is kind of, you know, I'm sure like another reason why it's a community favorite. But as far as kind of my opinion on it goes, it's just something I have exactly Dan's experience where I'm usually playing a Survivor that has access to other classes, so I'm playing their economy. Like if I'm playing Preston, it's Faustian Bargain. If I'm playing like Wendy, it's Faustian Bargain. You know, like there's just everybody else has options.
Because if you play all the cards that combo with drawing thin in your deck, you have room for like nothing else, and then you just like can't actually do anything. You're only good at failing tests.
Yeah.
Right. So we're out of time.
It's time for judgment. It sounds like you two are voting.
I mean, it is obviously kind of ridiculous to declare that this card goes into the binder forever, but that is kind of the rules that we set for ourselves.
That is the standard, and we have to uphold it.
Yes.
Luckily, it's Dane's binder forever, not mine, so I can still play it. But, you know, Dane, tragically, never again will get to play Drawing Thin because they are being sealed away forever. That is the judgment.
Farewell, Drawing Thin.
Bye-bye, Drawing Thin.
Forever.
I guess they can untaboo it now, right?
Hey.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. All right,
and then it'll come out of the ground like a zombie.
All right, next card. This is Faustian Bargain. This is
Faustian
a
Bargain.
cost 0
Whoa.
rogue event. We've mentioned it before on the podcast. It has willpower and intellect icon. It is a pact and cursed. As an additional cost to play Faustian Bargain, add 2 curse tokens to the chaos bag. Investigators at your location gain a total of 5 resources distributed as you wish.
So we love this card, right?
Mhm.
Like we all play this a lot.
We love
Is
us some
there-
level money.
But is there? It sounds like is there like a faction of people that kind of don't like this card as much as we do?
Yes.
This is another card that like I play all the time, but once again my friends are like, "What do you mean you had 2 curse tokens in the bag?" And I'm like,
Right.
I don't see the problem. I got 5 money.
Yeah.
Dane, maybe you're a little more in tune with this, with the curse token thoughts of the community. What do you think?
Yeah, so this was a card that I just kind of brought up casually because it's just kind of the standard in my brain. You know, it's always just like, I mean, if you're playing Rogue, you're playing this card.
Like an
there's no reason
incredible
not to.
auto include money
Right,
card.
right.
Yeah.
Smash it. You got a 28 card Rogue deck, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But when I was kind of talking to a few friends who play this game a lot, you know, as much or more than we do, they were talking about how they never even considered this card.
Really?
And I think it's mostly because they play primarily on hard mode, sometimes on expert mode. And the way that the math works out for the bag is it's just not favorable if you already have -5s that can just kind of like get you, even if you're up by 4. That this card can just brutalize you in terms like, or just curses in general, right? Like Promise of Power is kind of in that same boat where I was talking with them as if, you know, 28 card Mystic deck with 2 Promise of Powers, and you know, this is the logic, I guess, and others also are terrified of curses in the bag, from what I've heard from like people talking about on Card of the Day on Reddit and things like that. So yeah,
I mean, curses in standard are definitely not scary. I can understand a little bit more hard mode and definitely expert, but I guess the thought is like when we play hard mode or expert, we're usually either like stacking our stats to ridiculous amounts. So we're already trying to pass like it, because some of those hard and experts you have to deal with like skulls that go to like -8 or -10 or some complete nonsense, right? So when you're playing hard expert, you either are stacking really high or you're very specifically doing as few tests as possible.
Yeah,
so-
and the way the math usually works out is like either drawing a skull you fail anyway, or the chance of drawing a curse and a skull together is very, very low, right? Like, I mean, so I can't speak to expert because I don't really play that very much, but we do play a lot of hard mode. Like, I would say that's the difficulty we play most often. And yeah, I would always just slam this card. Like, I mean, I will say it obviously psychologically, it does get annoying sometimes when like someone else is playing it and, you know, they give you like a buck here and there. It's nice. But then like you have to worry about the curse tokens. You have to do like a little bit of extra math if it's like a really important test. You can be like, oh, you just had to get that extra money, didn't you? But I mean, it's just a very efficient money card. Like, would you want to play cash instead of this, which like doesn't have symbols on it, only gives you 3 money? Like, this is just, it's so worth it just to get this ratio of getting $5 for playing 1 card. The 2 curse tokens, which probably just kind of like disappear out of the bag on tests that you don't care about, probably don't actually affect anything. It's a really small price to pay.
yeah, and I think there's somebody out there somewhere who's done the statistics on this, and that, you know, you have 16, 17 tokens in the bag normally. Put 2 more in, you've got 19 now, right? And then even if you draw one of them, right, and it's a -2,
Yeah.
and you're kind of prepared for to be up +4, what are the chances then that you're going to get, you know, a -3 or worse? And that's like still, you've got a pretty decent shot, right? Like it's some odd out of 17.
Like just remember that it's a roll of the dice whether someone's going to draw the curse on a test that actually matters or doesn't. It's a roll of the dice on whether they're going to draw the test, meaning like do you even care the outcome of the test. It's a roll of the dice whether or not the curse is going to happen when like the outcome of the test is in doubt, whether or not like you actually have a chance to succeed or fail versus like almost definitely succeeding or almost definitely failing. And then if you really, really need to pass something, you can usually just like commit an extra card and even be safe from curses usually. So like, I just think getting five money for free is just so good. I mean, like the level 2 hot streak, isn't it like pay 5 and get 10 or something? Or
right. And the level 4 one is 3 for 10.
This is so much better than that, and it's level 0, right? Like paying 0 for 5 and dealing with 2 curse tokens is like massively, massively better than paying 5 and getting 10 for 2 XP.
100%. If this were like 2 for 7 or 1 for 6,
then
it would still be good, but it would it would have less in its court, I think. The fact that you have to pay exactly 0 credits for this. And by credits, I mean space bucks.
Yeah, but by credits you mean digital cyber resources, right?
Right. It's just wild.
And the art is cool. You got the scary devil guy there with the red gloves.
And you get to say devil money.
Would love a full art of this. Obviously, that would be really cool.
Oh, totally.
If anyone's FFG's listening, yeah, it's a really solid card. Like this feels like the most. I understand people's objections to it, maybe for the playing expert or something, but this still feels to me like the most like absolute staple. Put it in tons of decks cards out of everything from Innsmouth. You know.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So are we? Right. Well, almost out of time. Are we all on team? This is one of the best cards in the game. This card rocks.
I think that sounds like what we're voting. Best card in the game, should go in every single deck forever. No question.
Sounds right. Basically.
All right. It's going in the very comfy box of all the things that I can and love to play.
Nice. All right, next
card, which went in jail forever.
Yeah. So the next card is Ancient Covenant. This is a survivor asset, no cost, level 2. It's Covenant and Blessed. It's a permanent, limit 1 Covenant per deck. Reaction: when an investigator location resolves a Blessed token during a skill test, exhaust Ancient Covenant. Do not reveal another token as part of this Blessed token's effect.
This one really surprised me. Like we talked about this when we reviewed it, and we had no interest in it, and I really hadn't thought about it at all since then. But then I think one of you guys mentioned that like a lot of people actually really like this. Is that true?
Yeah, a lot of people evaluate this as a way to just automatically pass tests when you want, particularly when combined with other Blessed tech, where you throw a bunch of Blessed tokens in the bag, or have like Favor of the Sun to like have a couple Blessed tokens on hand at any time. And I actually played this, or sorry, I didn't play it. Sorry, Harrison played it in our recent Windy parallel.
Oh, that's right.
Parallel stream, which people can catch on Twitch still probably, and also on our YouTube channel. It seemed like it did some work. It definitely made it so, because we were also playing very Blessed heavy. It made it so Blessed tokens sort of did something in that you draw a Blessed token and you could stop trying to do the test. You don't have to worry about failing. As opposed to Blessed tokens usually not doing anything, because for Blessed tokens to do stuff, you have to have cards that power them. So this is the part of that tech. And also, I think you can use it on other investigators, which can be nice. But it is definitely lacking. Yeah, your location. It is definitely restricted just your location, which is a downside there. But the way we were playing that scenario, we were basically on top of each other the whole game, so it was effectively in play for both of us. And yeah, man, that's the case for it. It's on demand, passing a test when you need to.
I mean, I would add to the case for it that the kind of opportunity cost of it is very low, because it's a permanent, so it's not like you have to draw it, and it competes with other cards you could put in your deck. And it's only 2 XP, and it's a survivor card, so like what else are you going to spend your XP on? Like I can imagine, if I played a survivor for some reason, I can imagine taking this just because you run out of other stuff to spend XP on maybe. But I still think I don't think this really does a lot. And the reason I would say is that if you draw a Blessed token, aren't you almost definitely going to pass anyway? Like, unless you're really low, unless you're just really far behind on the test, like your ability is really low compared to the difficulty.
So I want you to remember, Dan, the stat line and card pool of survivors.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with this.
And realize that it's a lot of survivors. If it's not like their primary stat, it can be kind of hard to pump up a stat consistently to pass tests when they need to.
Yeah.
Some of them.
I mean, that's not an argument for this card being great. That's an argument for putting all the survivors in the binder forever. No, but I mean, okay, but the point stands, right? It's like, okay, you just drew a Blessed token, so now you can already like pass on a lot more tokens than you previously could, probably, right? And if this test like mattered to you at all, like I thought the whole thing with survivors is that like you're okay with failing tests, right? Or at least you can be. So like the scenario is like I care about this. I care about the outcome of this test. I'm in a position to maybe pass it if I draw the right token already, and I just drew a blessed token. Do I need this additionally to like make it even more likely that I pass? Like I feel like that's a pretty narrow set of circumstances. And if you don't have the favor of the sun, it's kind of random, right? Like you probably draw the blessed token on a test you don't even really need this for. And if you're comboing it with the favor of the sun, then you need to find that and play it, and you can only that takes like charges or secrets, right? You can only use it a few times.
Well, it seals 3 of the tokens on it, and then you
Oh, yeah,
choose to
okay.
draw them off of it instead of from the bag.
And on top of all of this, you need to have somebody actually putting blessed tokens in the bag too. So this is like a pretty complicated this is a pretty complicated engine you're building to just like maybe be able to pass a couple of tests, you know?
So a couple more points kind of to that effect. The first is that survivors can put blesses in the bag far easier than every other class, right? They've got
System
Keep
Mary.
Faith, and they've got I don't know nobody cares about System Mary. You've got
Okay.
Keep
All right.
Faith, and you've got that one card that's really good in Tommy and Calvin that I don't remember the name, Spirit of Humanity, where you take advantage of the horror and you pump it full of two blesses. I played this card in Tommy, and I got so many times where I just auto passed things essentially. And I think what your point, Dan, for it, where the opportunity cost is so low, this is honestly better than most of the other payoffs that bless cards can give you. Like if you're just going for blesses, of course, like so well sure. But like when you're playing bless cards, there's no circumstance in which you do not play this if you have access to it. And the other part for this card is that again, like the opportunity cost, you don't have to put it in your deck, which is really great. And amongst all of the covenants, this is, I think, by far the best, unless you're kind of in the ballpark of you want to play the blue covenant, which puts blesses back into the back. So like this covenant being able to take some of that variance away, being able to take some of that like maybe if you do have the favor of the sun, you don't actually have to commit any of your cards. You can kind of build up your cards and strategically work around it. For me, is just it's pretty invaluable.
I feel like this one's really hard because on the one hand, it belongs in the binder because if this card had never been printed, it wouldn't really make any difference. Like people would still pass tests at roughly the same rate. But on the other hand, it belongs in the great cards because I think there's a lot of decks that would take this because why not? It's a permanent and it only costs 2 XP. So like I don't think it does very much, but it also doesn't cost very much.
I mean, I think if you have the engine set up, being able to like make it so you can pass an important test without having to commit a bunch of extra things because you've already set yourself up is good. I guess you could compare it against like Grotesque Statue, which we used to play all the time in Mystic, because it was like, oh, this is a way to make it so I won't draw the auto fail and therefore we can pass the test by committing resources. I think this is a different way to think about it because it's like, oh, I have this passively. Once I play Flavor of the Sun is effectively 3 guaranteed successes on probably important tests. And then you don't need to commit other resources to that test, which I think is a big factor there. Because maybe you can commit stuff, so you're like, oh yeah, I'll pass on everything's about to fail. But
we're out of time, but I want to say one last thing, which is you guys reminded me of how bad Survivor stat lines are. Remember that you still have to be only 2 down from the test difficulty in order for this to be an auto pass, right? Otherwise, you do have to commit stuff.
Yeah, then you have to commit something still. They're not quite that bad, are they? No,
I mean they're usually within the 2 range.
Those are some pretty bad stat lines.
They usually have high will and high agility, and then one of their other stats is the one they're actually trying to use proactively.
I mean, I guess that question, it doesn't scale with how bad the bag is. Like it's not harder and expert because it's just based on the base difficulty. Anyway, we're out of time. I think I would still probably vote Binder for this one, but it's a weird one. Like it sounds like maybe are you guys both on the other team, or what do you think?
I think I would have voted Binder when we first evaluated it, but I've come around on it. I think it's a strong pickup for anyone that's running the blessed stuff in Survivor, which is definitely strong.
Well, let's settle down. Let's settle down a little bit.
I'd say the same thing. I agree. It's a great card for bless builds.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about just how evaluation of permanence is so different from other cards because you don't have to draw them; they're just there. That does change things a lot. So,
all right. Well, Ancient Covenant escapes the binder jail for today and gets put in the comfy cards that Dane was gonna get to play.
Somehow, against all odds.
Yeah,
Which is another Survivor card.
yeah, not one we're talking about today, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Up next is a Dan favorite.
Oh,
Monsters,
Ooh,
Monster Slayer,
Monster Slayer.
level 5.
Hell yeah.
Cost 1. It is a Guardian event. Has a combat and a wild icon on it. It is a spirit. Fight. If this attack succeeds against a non-elite enemy, defeat that enemy.
Oof. Oof. Man.
That's
Love
it.
it.
That's all it does.
Love this guy.
So
we
what's the
have to-
case for it, Dan? Why do you like this card so much?
Dane, do you remember when we played Return to Circle Undone on the stream, and we got to before the Black Throne, and I said to you, "Hey, look at those purple spaghetti monsters with 6 health. Do you think you can maybe kill one of those for us?" And you said, humiliatingly for you, you said, "No, I cannot. I cannot."
No,
do
that's
that."
not what I said. I said, absolutely not. There's no way in hell that I can even touch one of those things.
Do you remember? Yeah, do you remember how embarrassing that was? That you were like a blue guy, and I pointed at that non-elite enemy and said, like, "That's really annoying. Can you get that out of the way so we can win the scenario?" And you said, "I don't know." I submit that
Well,
if
I
you had
remember.
Monster Slayer 5 in your deck, you could have wrecked that guy. Like, I know
It's a possibility.
I like this card a lot because the thing that you really want in like a blue deck and a combat deck is action compression. It's just being able to like, oh no, all 4 people drew enemies on this Mythos phase. I am the only one that is really capable of dealing with it. I need to be so efficient. I need to be able to like kill all of these things really fast so that it's not just bogging us down and delaying our progression through the scenario. And this is just like a lot of power in one action, right? You pick whatever the biggest non-elite thing that somebody just drew is, and in most hard scenarios, there is going to be some like 5 health enemy that is pretty nasty that you really need to kill, and you can just immediately kill it if you can pass one test. It's also kind of nice because if it's like early in the game, if you didn't draw one of your weapons for some reason off your mulligan, this is kind of a substitute because like, okay, I'd rather have a weapon, but even without a weapon, I can still like kill something pretty easily if I need to while I'm waiting to find one. The XP obviously is a lot. 5 XP is a lot, so I don't get this immediately in Guardian decks, but I would love to have 1 or 2 of these kind of getting into the last couple scenarios of the campaign, getting into the like Black Stars Rise, Before the Black Throne, those types of scenarios. I feel way better having like 1 or 2 of these in my deck.
So what's the argument, for Monster Slayer versus something like Lightning Gun, right? Like whereas Lightning Gun could essentially sometimes give you that value 3 times, or like a flamethrower could give you that value 3 times, or a more recent card that kind of does combat this directly, level 5 1-2 punch, which does 5 damage to something directly.
So 1-2 punch is definitely good. I mean, I think that that like definitely competes with this card and maybe is better in some situations. But what I like about this is it kills anything, like the Apex Stranglevine or the Conglomeration of Spheres, like 6 health, instant death, right? Like even the flamethrower, 1 shot isn't enough to kill those, right? And the flamethrower or the lightning gun, those are things that you have to spend a lot of money to play. You need to like have them ready. You need to have an ammo ready. This is just if you have it in your hand, you can just play it. You can just kill things, and you can have a weapon too. You can have your like gun or sword or whatever for kind of smaller enemies, and then when there's a big enemy out, you use this. I think that's pretty solid. But you're right that 1-2 punch is like a pretty fair kind of like competitor against it, I think.
Yeah, I feel like a big downside of this card is it does not give you any bonus to actually succeeding at the fight test. So
yeah, but you can just think about your dead wife and just boost your combat up to whatever.
But what if you're not playing Mark?
Sorry, what?
Think about that.
but if I'm fighting stuff, I would be playing Mark, right?
But I mean, what if you did feel like playing Mark, or you accidentally didn't buy Carcosa?
Sorry, what? Can you walk me through this a little bit? Can you I'm not following you.
So there's actually other characters in the game that can fight stuff other than Mark, but they do not have wives that tragically died to motivate them to fight harder.
Sorry, if I understand correctly, you're saying there's other investigators that are like blue that are guardians that are not Mark Harrigan?
Yeah, there actually are. There's like 6 or 7
and not
of them.
besides Bark Harrigan even. You're saying there are non-dog investigators who are not named Bark Harrigan.
Yes,
I
and one of them is actually on the art for that Ben pulled up here, who is actually also a decent choice for this card because he can pull up spirits. It's Nathaniel Cho, and he gets extra damage, though it doesn't really do anything on this card.
Oh, so
for
so
playing
even so even non-mark guardians can use this card well. I rest my case. If they exist, which I'm still a little bit skeptical of.
I feel like Nathaniel Cho would never use this card though. Like
he
likes
could.
playing-
I'm just saying that he would be a
could,
good candidate for it
but
because
he
he could be over a lot of things.
he can play the level 0 version that does 3 damage with his ability, which is like
Right.
generally.
But
pretty
even
good.
even the upgraded version, yeah, like Dane said, he can find it with the boxing gloves. He also gets the bonus to use it with boxing gloves. And remember, you can only use his ability to do extra damage once per turn. So maybe with Nathaniel Cho, maybe you use a 1-2 punch to kill one enemy, and you use this to kill another enemy.
Yes, that is also kind of a thing that you strategize in your Nathaniel turns. But
I guess is it worth 5 experience to kill one enemy in one action?
It's like it's like gravy,
possibly
right?
needing to commit stuff as well too.
It's
Yeah.
not like it's not in the first like 15 experience that I would spend. I would get like beat cops and stuff first, but like at some point, definitely, right? Like it's not like a completely like I just have XP that I have nothing else valuable to do with it. I'm just gonna spend it on random crap. It's not that. It is a good card that I think makes your deck better. But you're right, it's not like one of the first 3 or 4 things you're gonna upgrade.
yeah, I mean the 2 points against it, in the last couple seconds here. One is that it can't target elite enemies, right? Which is a really big downside when you're comparing it to that 1-2 punch. And the other is that it doesn't it doesn't give those combat stats. So if we're not talking about the absolute best candidates for it, who would be like, Mark and Nathaniel, if you're, like Roland or Sister Mary, who's somebody who is not quite as good and can't get over that combat hump, it would be harder for them to play this. And I think that's kind of the perspective that a lot of people in the community have. And from what I've heard anyway, people just generally don't like this card because their perspective is that they can just get a shotgun and do this twice. Or they can get a flamethrower and do this 4 times or whatever. So how do we feel about it?
I definitely disagree about the shotgun flamethrower thing, but I agree the card has limitations. I don't think that like playing a big weapon is an automatic substitute for what this card gives you.
All right. Well, tragically, we have to make one decision: either best card ever or complete garbage.
I vote best card ever.
Dane,
what do you feel, Ben?
Oh
God.
Well, I'll make you make the deciding vote. I don't think it's best card ever. I think it has to be complete garbage. So, Dane, what do you think? What's your judgment?
I have never bought this card ever with any deck, and it doesn't mean I don't like this card. It's just that I've always been like, let's make big weapons happen, or let's make a lot of allies happen, or whatever. And for that reason, I think I'm gonna have to say it's pure trash.
Yeah. Well, I got news for you, Dane. You never will ever get to play it now. So I hope you had no dreams of it.
It's gonna be locked in your box. I mean, hey, what goes around comes around. I'm at peace with it. But I will say, I think the only thing I want to point out is you guys are basing this decision entirely on the possible existence of non-Mark Harrigan Guardian investigators, which I believe is still yet to be conclusively proven. It's like when physicists say like, oh, if dark matter or dark energy exists out here, like theoretically the universe could be the shape of a torus or something. Like, I mean, sure, man, I don't know, but nobody really knows, do they?
All right. Next card.
In Binder jail forever.
Yeah. Jail forever. All right. Next card is Switchblade level 2. This is a rogue asset, cost 1. Has a combat and agility icon. It's an item, weapon, melee, illicit. It is fast. Has action, fight. You get +2 combat for this attack. If you succeed by 2 or more, this attack deals +1 damage. And it's been chained to cost 1 additional experience. Also, it takes up a hand slot.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we put this on here because we were never really super impressed with this card, and I think when it got tabooed, we were very surprised.
Excuse me.
Because
I mean, it didn't get tabooed very hard. It just got a little taboo, right?
I mean, it made it cost 3 experience for a weapon that does extra damage, but only if you succeed by 2. So like the +2 combat doesn't effectively do anything in our minds, right? It just puts you at even. Because if you're using a weapon, you want to be doing +1 damage most of the time. That's generally
like the
whole
whole point of a weapon. Yeah.
But
yeah,
I think this is a very popular card, is my understanding. Dane, are you in touch with what's your vibe on this use in the community?
Paint us a picture, Dane. Like, what kind of deck would like use this card and like be really happy with it?
So I've heard from a lot of members of the community. I mean a lot. I mean like 3 or 4 people who I've talked to once or twice. And from what I've heard, from what the statistics are telling me, is that a lot of people think this ranges from a very good rogue card to put in your deck if you're going to be doing a lot of combat to the best card for rogues to put in their combat deck, no questions asked. And so I did ask some questions, and I did a little digging, and it did get tabooed. I'm going to make a case for the card in that it is one of the least expensive weapons in the game. Its opportunity cost to play is super, super low. You don't even have to have an action play. You don't even have to have it on the board before something engages you, which is fantastic, right? That's like, you don't need to take an action to play it. It costs 1 resource, which is, again, infinity more than 0, but also infinity less than 6 or 5.
That's actually not true.
Or
It's not, infinity less than those numbers. It's a large but measurable finite percentage less than those numbers.
It's that more than 1. So that's a lot that it has going for it. And if you're somebody like Tony Morgan, and exactly Tony Morgan, who has 5 combat, just like Mark, just like Nat, some of the best of the monster handlers in the game, he can do this pretty consistently, right? Like, he's going to be at a base 7, not to mention if he has Lonnie or Delilah helping him out. So, like, these kinds of things just make this card incredible as a pickup. However, if you are not Tony Morgan, the next highest combat in the rogue class is 3, I think, with
like
Skids and Finn.
Yeah, I mean that's
right?
the answer. That's the answer to the question I wanted to ask, which is like, who are these green fighter people that we're talking about who are going to use this card? Like Tony, sure, but everybody else, like, you need a little bit more. You need like a real boost to your combat on your weapon to be able to hit stuff.
I mean, when this came out, there was not like much support to actually make Succeed by 2 work really well, right? But
I mean,
now,
cigarette case is all you really need for it to be great, right?
Well, but that doesn't help you actually succeed by 2. That's a benefit from it, right?
Oh,
I meant more like, now there's actual cards that rogues have access to that they can like commit and get their stats high enough up so they can consistently succeed by 2.
yeah. Are any of
Yeah, I
those
guess
cards
that's
really
true.
good though? Like,
I mean, they're rogue cards, and I know rogue cards in Dan's mind are not orange. So
well, no,
therefore-
I mean, like, I mostly like, I hope you're not talking about like Daring Maneuver or something, because like that to me is like not a good enough card to like turn on this kind of strategy. But
I forget which.
but no,
is
but
that the succeed by 3 to get an action card.
no, that's the, like, if you were going to succeed anyway, you play it fast and it increases your skill value by 2.
No, that's terrible.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was talking about.
I like when you do the succeed by decks, you like run a bunch of cards that like give you some bonus, and also if you succeed by, they give you a bonus to the test, and also if you succeed by, you get some other bonus, like maybe Opportunist or whatever card was what's the card that gives you an extra action when you succeed?
Derringer?
No,
quick thinking.
Quick thinking. Yeah.
Quick thinking. Like, you stack up on those and you commit them to tests, and then you pass by a lot and you get a bunch of extra benefits.
I could almost see playing it in Winnie, because you do, like, whenever you need to, you can just pass something by a lot by committing a bunch of cards. But at that point, it's like, is it really? How often am I going to be fighting as Winnie? Is it better? Could I just play a backstab instead or something? And like, just be able to pass even more easily without having to like deal with combat and stuff.
I mean, Winnie can easily swing hybrid or full clues or full combat, I think. So, if you're doing a combat Winnie or trying to do a combat rogue, this is pretty solid. One thing we also didn't mention is it has no ammo, so it has infinite uses. And if you don't succeed by 2, you still do 1 damage, which is not as exciting.
But you get the combat buff.
But you get the combat buff to help you actually pass the test. And there are also a lot of like odd health enemies, so you might still need to attack twice as a rogue because you don't have beat cop or whatever.
Well, I mean, but that's my question again. Is there are a lot of other green weapons though, right? Like, so this is at least okay, but does it compare to like the Thompson or like what's the other one, like the Mauser? Like there are other, or even something like Time Worn Brand if you're willing to spend a little bit more XP. Like, how does this stack up against those?
Yeah, so this is the thing I wanted to mention kind of before we close out here. One thing is that when this came out, there wasn't a lot of competition for it, right? Like rogues like Skids had to rely on like the 45 automatic and Machete, whereas now post Winnie pack, there's a lot more support, and there's like kind of some reasons to maybe not take this card right away. Like Mausers are very fun for me, and I think they're a good card, but I think they're not quite as good as Switchblade. And The other thing is that non rogues can take this, right? Like Leo Anderson can take
Yeah.
this, and it's pretty okay. It puts him up to 6. So
last thing
like,
I want to say, last thing to say really quick, it is really good that this is fast. That does rock.
yes.
But we have to vote on this. I feel like I would still say Binder than this one, just because Dane loves Tony Morgan, and I don't think I've ever seen Dane play this in a Tony Morgan deck.
I don't think I've ever
So,
actually played it.
If like the biggest Tony guy, and that's like the deck where you're supposed to play this card, isn't playing it, then how good can it really be? That's my thinking.
I mean, maybe he was sleeping on it. That's what some of these cards are. Ones that maybe we were sleeping on.
Well, maybe.
Like maybe it's his entire bed is just every copy of Switchblade he's got in
Well,
from his 20.
Okay, so Dane, how are you going to vote on this one?
God, it's hard because I really do acknowledge that it does seem like a really good card for Tony, but just a good card for Tony. I think that a lot of other rogues, other than maybe Winnie, if she goes full combat, are going to really struggle with it. And for that reason, I would say it belongs in the binder.
Oof.
Ooh, well, I guess my vote doesn't matter then, so nobody will know it. Throw it in the binder, Dane.
No, that's not how it works.
That's
Gotta
how
be
it
on the
works,
record.
then.
No, you still have to
Do
vote.
I have to write a dissenting opinion, I guess, for
If,
the record?
only if you actually do dissent.
And also in like the next 20 seconds.
You got to be on the record, Ben. This is journalism. This is what journalism looks like.
I've seen this card do some work in my friends that like Rogalot's decks. Like the opportune cost is good, is very cheap to play, and they're already running a bunch of nonsense to boost their combat or otherwise boost their skills, so they usually get the benefit from it, and they don't have to worry about ammo. I think it might actually be good, but Dane will never find out because it's going in his going in the binder forever.
All right, away it goes.
So that is a judgment. It's
On
Very
the
well
next
old
card.
Switchblade.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next up, and maybe last, because I don't remember the order we put these slides in, is David Renfield. This is a Mystic asset. Cost 2. Level 0. Has Intellect Icon. It's an ally and a patron. Much like our patrons.
Much like you can become if you go to patreon.com/Miskatonic University Radio.
Exactly. Thank you, Dan. Its ability is, while David Renfield has at least 1 Doom on him, you get +1 willpower. Free trigger, exhaust David Renfield. You may place 1 Doom on David Renfield, gain 1 resource for each Doom on David Renfield. Takes up the ally slot, and he has 2 health and 1 sanity.
Herr Doctor Professor Major Lieutenant General Presidente Magnifico David Renfield himself, the man, the ultimate guy.
Yeah. Now, real quick before we get into actually an analysis and the pros and cons, I want to provide a disclaimer here. David Renfield is not here because we don't like him. I'm going to say that straight out.
He's here because he exists, and he must be heard.
So
And he's esteemed.
He's a human being with rights, and also he maybe wants the apocalypse to happen. Is maybe like the flavor of his card.
Yes. So what do you think about David?
he does pay you to get you closer to the apocalypse, right? Like that's
Pretty much. Well, I think we should first say the reason that he's on this list of cards is because like we kind of joke about him a lot, and I think we all really like him. I don't think we ever see like anybody else talking about or playing this card. Is that right, or am I like missing out on? Are there other Renfield heads out there? You know, Ren Fair attendees. You know, like
I think Dane's most in tune with the vibe on these cards. Dane, what have you heard?
I rarely have ever seen anybody mention Renfield. And like when I look at decks, sometimes I'll see him in them, but not all the time. Like sometimes it'll be Arcane Initius, and that's fine and good. But this is Dr. David the Renfield, that we're talking
exactly.
about.
I mean,
right?
even I like him a lot, but I think recently I played a deck with him in it, and I was like, this would have been better to have Initiate so I could draw more cards. Like I don't think he's universally good. I think you put him in a deck where you need money, maybe, and then you have other ways to do the other important things.
So
This is essentially every Mystic deck.
This is like kind of the problem. Like Mystics are great, except that they have no ways to draw cards or get money. It's kind of like the take. Like Mystics are actually good, but they definitely do not have a lot of options for either cards or money. And their main option for card draw, if you're playing enough spells, is Arcane Initiate.
Right.
And their main
Spell
option for
Secrets.
money is this guy right here, right? So But the thing is, he doesn't just give you money, right? He's very cheap. He gives you a lot of money. He also gives you that will, which is pretty nice. If you're in hard mode, you're 5-will mystic, or if you're in any mode and you're like a 4-will mystic, like boosting your will because that's the only stat you're using is really, really good, right?
Yeah.
So to me, and there's not that many ways to boost your will statically other than like Holy Rosary. That's like really the only other one.
Yeah. The other thing is that it boosts your or it gives you a health, right? A health soak.
Yeah.
Which is not nothing. I
mean, he usually soaks 1 health, and then I am desperately trying to find a way to kill him by taking a damage before the agenda advances, which is the scary part, right?
I think that's kind of why he's worth debating here, is because it's not that he's like the best card ever, although that is kind of what we're arguing because of how this format works.
One of the two options. Yes.
It's more that like I think our perception is that a lot of people are kind of scared to play Mystics in general and to play this card in particular because they're very scared of cards that get Doom on them, right? Because obviously it's really bad if you screw this up and you end up making the agenda advance like 3 turns early. You've pretty much just like lost the scenario in a lot of cases. It's really bad. Yeah. But there's a lot of decks where you can just afford to do this and it's not going to cause problems. Like if you're playing Dexter, because of the way Dexter's abilities work, you can just pretty much always get rid of David Renfield unless you draw Yazdaroth at a really funny time. Like you can just pretty much always get rid of him. There's stuff you can do like, oh, the agenda's about to advance. I'm going to let an enemy hit me on enemy phase, or I'm going to like, I know I only have another couple turns left, so I could put this damage and horror from a Mythos phase treachery on me, but I'll put it on him instead. And then you just play another one after that, and you start getting even more money again. Like, yeah, like Agnes, like Dane mentioned, maybe you're playing like Forbidden Knowledge, you can use that to kill him. If you have ways to reliably get rid of him, he's a really solid ally.
Yeah, I think, and in the absolute worst case scenario, either A, you're playing Moonlight Ritual, which don't play that card.
Yeah.
B is you have to like take your turn to go find a cultist to like smack him once or something, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's just kind of like shame on you, Mystic. You should have had a way to do this. But like, even still,
yeah,
I've played maybe 10, 11 campaigns alongside or playing with David Renfield, and I think I might have like made the thing advance like once.
Yeah,
I've played Marie once, and I made 3 agendas advance prematurely.
You also did that with Carolyn, like the one time you tried playing Book Carolyn with me, right?
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Statistics, right? Like we gotta think about the esteemed eschatologist here in terms of like how often and reliable. I guess what is his opportunity cost? It's so low.
So that's the thing is like I would not play this in every deck. Like I don't usually play this in Agnes because with Agnes I really want the Arcane Initiate for card draw because there's no other options and I don't need that much money. But like in a Dexter deck, I think you'd be crazy not to play this because you can already get your draw off Cigarette Case and the extra will just helps you trigger it, and you can get rid of him for free whenever you want to. So like I think he's like an auto include for Dexter, and I think he's pretty fine in a lot of other Mystic decks.
Yeah, I think if you have an alternative to draw other than like Arcane Initiate, then he's a good pickup.
Like the book, the Scroll of Prophecies or whatever.
I mean, he pays for himself effectively in 2 turns if you only put 1 Doom on him, and he starts giving you money back if you put 2 Doom on him on the second turn. It's just a matter of you need to have a way to deal with him. And if
he's very funny, you can troll people a lot by getting up to like 4 Doom with him and being like, "Yeah, we're probably fine. We can last another turn."
Yeah. So
yeah, the fact that he has 1 will or one horror threshold is weird because you can ward something and kill him with the ward.
Yeah.
So like a lot of cool tricks.
There are a lot of ways for Mystics to hurt themselves, and Mr. David Renfield is there to jump
like
in the way of the spell backlash at just the right moment.
The classic. We need a name for this gambit, this maneuver, but I feel like the classic outcome for Mr. David Renfield, PhD, MD, JD, is to like be 2 Doom away from the threshold with a bunch of Doom on him and be like, okay, as long as we don't draw an Ancient Evils, we're good, but I have a ward level 2 in hand. And then if someone draws Ancient Evils, you play ward 2, you kill David Renfield, and you prevent the Doom from going off.
Nice, yeah.
It feels great when you do that.
And it's got to be the Renfield maneuver, right? Anybody who does that, send us an immediate email to comments@mur.fm, and we will increment the Renfield maneuver counter.
Yeah, we're gonna and you know what? I'll even tell you what the email should say. I'll dictate it. Dear Miskatonic Universe Radio, thank you for telling me the correct opinions about all these cards. I've learned so much. You're all so wise. Thank you very much. The end. That's it. That's all you have to say.
Correct is a little much.
You did mention the Renfield maneuver, Dan.
Yeah. You also didn't mention
that part is implied. You know.
All right, so vote best card ever. Binder
Best
garbage.
card ever.
Best card.
Why are you guys even hesitating? Come on. Yeah, come on.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Dane,
Yeah,
you get to put it in a prestigious area. I have a follow-up question for you, Dane. You're putting these cards in the revised core set. Are those cards you actually use in that box? Because you mentioned the starter decks were in there. Still assembling.
Glad you asked. Every time I teach new players the game, I open this box and light some candles.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
so so every time you teach a new player now, when you open the box, Mr. David Renfield's gonna be right there on top, at least until we do another one of these episodes.
To teach them about eschatology.
Okay.
Who better, right? Who knows more about eschatology?
Better?
Yeah.
Well, that's it. That was in fact the last card for the judgment today.
We might do this again one of these days though, because it was kind of fun.
Totally. I think these kinds of cards are really interesting, and they come up all the time. They change in power a lot of the time, right? Like we were talking about drawing thin being something that you take all the time, and now it's like, because it's been tabooed, it's like, is this a card that's still worth taking, or like what are people thinking about it now?
Yeah, we could even revisit some of these same cards if something changes about them. That might be interesting.
Totally.
Yeah, definitely email us or talk to us on Discord or something if you find other cards. If you listen to us and you're like, why do these guys keep talking about this card when everyone else hates it, or vice versa, let us know, because we might do another episode like this.
Yeah, we absolutely encourage you to chat about these picks and these debates. Talk with us on our Discord. If you're in chat, type !Discord to get the link to hop in. Let us know what cards you want to see on trial and which ones you feel deserve a rehearing. Send us your thoughts at comments@mur.fm. To stay current on what we're doing, follow us on social networks, including Instagram and Twitch. Again, the links to all of these are at social.mur.fm. If you really enjoy what we do and want to get more involved, you can become one of our patrons at patreon.com/MrHoneyDiversityRadio, or just leave us a nice review on your favorite podcast source. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, folks, for being here in the Twitch today. And we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.